So section 2.3 deals with finding trig function values using a calculator. With the exception of some identities we're going to learn later on, basically if you're given an angle and you're asked to find the trig function values for it, unless that angle's on the unit circle, you're going to need a calculator. Now back in the day, they didn't even let you use a calculator. They gave you like one that could just add, subtract, multiply, divide, and then they would give you a list, like a printed list of tables, and on that table for every angle between 0 and 360, there was a sine value and a cosine value, and you would have to use those in your four function calculator. So you're very lucky to have as useful a calculator as you have. So we just want to talk through today how to do that if it says to find a trig function value for something that's not on the unit circle and that you're not given an ordered pair for. The first thing, you have to always be careful when you're working with the trig functions and make sure that you're in the proper mode. So for the first two chapters, we will be in degree mode, but in the third chapter, we will move into what we call radian mode. So that's the first thing we want to look at, is we want to make sure you can go to your calculator and you can find the proper mode. So, if I pull my calculator up right here, and I go to mode, we want to go down, I'm in radian mode right now, so I'm going to go down here and I'm going to get on top of degree mode and hit enter to toggle over to degree mode. Does everybody know how to do that? Okay. Now what your book recommends, and I especially recommend it, because for quizzes and tests you have to use our calculators, and in calculus they're going to move those to radian mode all the time. So that's the first thing you want to do when you turn your calculator on, is check and see what mode you're in. And your book recommends this, typing in sine of 90, and you should always get a value of 1. Now that's not the way I learned it. I always learned to type in cosine of 60, because cosine of 60 is 1/2. So that's how I always check mine. But pick one and always get in the habit of checking that and make sure it returns the right value before you start working with it. So let's look at these examples. We want to approximate the value of each expression. We'll start with the sine of 49 degrees and 12 minutes. When I give you a calculator problem, if you just write the answer down, I can't help you if you make a careless mistake. So what I recommend is that you write down what you type into your calculator and let that be the work that you show. So for example, I'm going to type sine of 49 degrees, 12 minutes in like this. I'll hit the sine button. It should open its own parenthesis. And then instead of 49 and 12, I'm going to type in 49 plus 12 over what? 60. 12 over 60, yeah. And then I'll close the parenthesis and hit enter. That will convert the minutes into a decimal and allow my calculator to work with them. So that's how you type minutes in. You just add the minutes over 60. If you had seconds to go with it, you would also add the seconds over what? 3,600, yeah, over 3,600. And then we're going to type that in and we're going to round it to, since it didn't say, let's just round it to 3 decimal places. Can't see. So we have the sine of 49 plus 12 divided by 60. Now you can use the whole alpha y equals thing if you want, but you don't have to. When you use these conversions, it's not necessary to put extra parentheses, and it doesn't really even have to be in fraction form. You'll get the correct answer. So did you guys get 0.757? Yeah. Okay. So this one we rounded to 0.757. So most people do really well with sine, cosine, tangent. Here's where we get into trouble. You cannot type secant, cosecant, or cotangent into your calculator. So to do those, you have to convert them using an identity to either sine, cosine, or tangent. Now we know that secant is equal to 1 over what? Cosine. So if we want to type in the secant of 97.977 degrees, we really are going to type in 1 divided by cosine of 97.977. So the angle will stay the same. And that's what we'll type into our calculator to get an approximation. If you want to do cosecant, you would type it in as 1 divided by sine of whatever your angle is. And cotangent, you would type it as 1 divided by tangent. That's why we memorize those reciprocal identities early on, so that we can use them to get out the function values that aren't on the calculator. So let's go type that in. 1 over cosine of 97.977 degrees.
Three decimal places again.
So 1 over cosine of 97.977. We'll hit enter, and we are at, did you guys get negative 7.206? Okay. Now, what are the units for trig function values? Does anybody remember? There are no units because the trig functions are ratios, and ratios don't have units. So angles have units, they're degrees or radians, but trig function values are just unitless. They're just ratios of numbers. So for part C, we're looking at 1 divided by the cotangent of 51.4283 degrees. Now once again, anytime you see secant, cosecant, or cotangent, you can't type those in exactly as they are. So you're going to have to use an identity to convert them to either sine, cosine, or tangent. 1 divided by cotangent is the same as tangent. That's our reciprocal identity at work. It always says that tangent is equal to 1 over cotangent as long as their angles stay the same. So this actually equals tangent of 51.4283 degrees. We're just going to put our parentheses around that and type it in. So tangent of 51.4283. We get 1.254. Did everyone get that? 1.254? So that's our tangent value, which is the same as our 1 divided by cotangent value. So 1.254. Do you think that we would get the same thing if we did 1 divided by 1 divided by tangent?
Yeah.
Do you think? Try it and see if you do. Take a minute. I know a lot of people want to do that. They want to say it's really 1 divided by 1 divided by. See if you get the same thing.
Yeah. It just takes a.
Ooh, what did I do wrong? Does anybody know?
You didn't put it in parentheses?
I didn't put it in parentheses. Yeah, that's the trouble when you try to type it in like that. You have to say 1 divided by 1 over tangent of 51.4283.
See, I used the alpha y equals.
Yeah, if you
so I
use the
didn't
actual
work.
fraction menu, it should work better. So you have to be really careful because parentheses matter. If you have a fraction button on your calculator, that helps a lot too if you use the alpha y equals. But the best thing to do is to simplify it as much as you can before you type it in, which is what we did the first
So you
time.
don't have to do all that.
Yes, you don't have, you should never have to type in 1 twice. You either type in 1 over or you type the original. You shouldn't have to do a 1 over 1 over. But a lot of people process that one that way. So let's talk about the sine of negative 246 degrees. The good news is that almost every one of the newer calculators can handle negative angles. So a lot of people think, well, do I have to get a coterminal first by like adding 360? You can certainly do that, but when it's a calculator problem, your calculator is designed to handle negative angles as long as you put the angle in the parentheses. So you should be able to go and just type in sine of negative 246, close that parenthesis, and get an answer. Sine of negative 246 degrees. 0.914, so approximately 0.914.
All of these have been rounding up.
Okay, that takes you through how to find trig function values for any angle and any of the trig functions. Just to make sure we're clear, I want you to find the cosecant of 21 degrees, 16 minutes, and 17 seconds. So we'll pause right here and give you a second to go see if you can figure out how to find the cosecant of 21 degrees, 16 minutes, and 17 seconds. Okay, so let's talk about this. Your first step is you need to convert it into a sine problem. So we'll do 1 over sine of that. But to type that in our calculator, we'll actually type in 1 over sine of, and then we have to do our conversions. 21 plus 16 out of 60 plus 17 out of 3600. You should be able to hit enter there, and it should give you approximately 2.756. 2.756. And that's pretty much all you need to know to help you get through finding any of the trig functions using a calculator if you're given the angle. Any questions? All right, this is a good time for us to break, because after this we're going to look at how do I find a missing angle if I know what the trig function value is. So it's actually an inverse process. So we're going to kind of cut it right here.